This portion goes out to the one who is sitting upon their toilet whilst listening to my tale. I just want to know that we're all watching you on your porcelain throne, and I'm your #1 fan. As it is, I can see that everything is coming out smoothly, so I'll leave you alone to finish, because no one else is going to. By the way, please give me your word that you won't run next time you see me in person, for it is essential that I grab hold of your earlobe so that I may speak to you of What the Fuck Am I Listening To? Chapter 3, The Cat Dragged Frederick Back, by Joe Finsternis. Moon is alone too, but still shines. Anonymous quote. Are you aware that cats possess multiple lives? Most say that it's 9, but this is not the truth. A cat will live for as long as it pleases, shuffling off its mortal coil once it has grown bored with you. Comic strip. A cat arrives in heaven. Death is there. She says that the cat was the best kitty. The cat asks where the birds are. It gets sent to hell. They are our favorite pets here, for we do not receive dogs. They devour the scraps of the remains, so there is no necessity for us to mop them up. Sometimes they sit in our laps for warmth. It feels very pleasant. The first cat to be murdered by Paul shall not have a name, for it is the only feline character that will be relevant to the main thread of the story. And if someone takes on the daunting task of committing all of this to celluloid, the cat will not have a sexy Keith David voice. They do not speak in the same way humans do. Occasionally, when a cat returns from its grave, it will bring with it a present. This is not always allowed, but the Lord and Master approved of this one because Paul doesn't deserve to be happy. It was not a heartwarming reunion. Paul was in love once. Yes, he felt a genuine emotion towards another human being that was unlike dislike. Her name was Shan. She was growing up in the same orphanage as Paul. She was but a year younger than Paul. She thought that he was handsome, and he was quite a dapper young lad. He thought that she was the ugliest child he had ever laid eyes on, and so it was love at first sight. All things considered, once she finally blossomed into puberty and became a young woman, she was a 3, most certainly closer to a 4 than a 2. Her soul currently resides in the kingdom of heaven. One night, Paul had a dream that displeased him. In the dream, he and Shan were encasing each other with their arms. He was hoping that she might at last place her mouth against his. It was just then that he felt more arms, because in reality, Shan was an insect, and Paul should have known this all along. The dream ended with her biting Paul's Peter with her invertebrate mandibles. Paul was not enjoying this. He could still feel it after he woke. The following day, Shan had intentions to hold one of his hands with one of hers. She was excited. Paul was scared of Shan. He called her an insect. Shan thought that this was very funny and laughed. Shan blossomed into adulthood with a gorgeous silver hook in place of her right hand. She was happy, for it brought her closer to a 4. And that is the story of how Paul discovered that his favorite snack was ladyfingers. Paul was very popular with the orphans, as psychopaths so often are. The girls liked him, but he swore never to fall in love again. Shan did not tell the children about why they broke up. She told the nurses that her hand had been stolen by a stray coyote while she had been asleep, because she still loved Paul. Shan was not a bright child. Paul did not mind the attention from most of the fellow orphans. A lot of them were clean and well fabricated. But what he didn't want attention from was Frederick. Frederick was supposed to have been disposed of after his untimely fatal bleeding, yet he was there all the same. Paul could not yet see his nemesis. He was not aware of his presence, but it wasn't much longer after the resurrection that he could hear his other. He heard a soft, high-pitched noise emanating from within the walls of his room. He had a new bunkmate named Alan. Alan could hear the meows too, for the cat had returned in physical form and was not a phantom residing in Paul's imagination. And for the sake of the reader's sanity, or the listener's sanity in this case, the cat was no longer capable of being in agony. We do not approve of harming non-human individuals. Another important detail to note is the matter of why we haven't had Paul murdered, when clearly we are able to influence other worlds. Anyone who has experienced death can tell you that the suffering of an immortal soul in the afterlife carries a far more potent agony than your body could comprehend. It would end your life in less than a second, But with a soul, we can carry it beyond eternity. But the suffering of a body of flesh filled with blood, bones, and fecal material is bland and dull in an insufferable manner that hell could never hope to replicate. So Paul shall remain festering in his meat prison for the foreseeable future. He will die, but not too soon. Any further questions? Alan could hear the meows pissing from a vent on the wall in a steady stream. The vent was close to the floor and did not have metal screws holding it in place. Alan pulled it from the wall and stuck his face into the hole to gain sight of the poor, helpless animal. He then laid down on the ground, sleeping. He could not stick his face into the hole again, because he no longer had a face, you silly sausage. I don't know why I gave Alan a name. He was kind of unimportant and stupid. But I will continue to name these characters for reasons. I checked on Alan last week, and he was still being pinched and pricked. It must have been about the 80 millionth time that day. Paul witnessed Alan's demise and said nothing because he did not wish for the nuns to know about the cat. What if it pointed to him in a lineup? Alan was replaced with another roommate named Egley. He did nothing of consequence to the plot and will not be mentioned again. He is currently awaiting judgment for his sins. I hate when they make us wait. They already know we're getting him at the end of the day. One day Frederick entered the room through the hole where the vent had been. He was considerably large for the hole and would not have been able to fit through it in life, so he made his entrance the unusual way. Paul was not pleased. He informed Frederick that this was not his room anymore and that he was not alive anymore and requested for him to leave. He was unnecessarily rude about the way he said it. Frederick ignored Paul's requests and opened his mouth to throw up the phrase, "I am a girl now. I even have boobs. I don't have a pecker. I want you to have my virginity, Paul." When giving your book a title, it must advertise what you are about to read, or in this case, listen to. I still have not received a settlement from E.L. James, whose novel I suspected would be about spending a lovely afternoon sitting between 50 different species of tree. Paul was just beginning to think of ways to tell Frederick he no longer wanted to be in love when the cat entered the room as well. The cat was looking upon Paul with an expression of intense loathing. It was not grateful for what Paul had done. The cat lunged for Paul, and he pulled Frederick directly in front of him to use as a shield. Consider, if you will, the fact that Frederick was taller than Paul, and his legs were not standing very closely together. If the only way a furious feline can get to its standing target is between the legs of a taller person standing in front of them, which portion of that target do you suppose it'll attack? The feral undead shot like an arrow between Frederick's legs and bit down on Paul's Peter. Paul was not enjoying this. Our next chapter will shift focus onto something else. I'm sure you'll be fine as long as you keep one hand on the edge of the cliff. Until next time, be sure to take care of yourself and stay positive.